Well, look at that. That's those are blushers. Yep. Here's like a blushing parts here, which are, as it was very sunny, they're kind of brownish. But if you would see them from below, you would see that they're nicely pinkish. So those are blushers. We actually had we found you know, by chance, you know, like we were searching for them, but we found amazing blushers a couple days ago, like fresh ones. Some of them were not even open yet, but quite large already, and they were absolutely fantastic. Like, you know, very dense, very fresh, no worms. Absolutely amazing. And I oh, hear that? So that's definitely a different male of a definitely different territory and different male. So one over there and one further there. So there are two. Nice. There are two quail territories there. They're in the field, which is kind of, that's not good, you know. If it's gonna find a mate there and they're gonna make a nest, you know, they're gonna plow that field eventually, or like harvest the grain, and that's gonna not be great for the nest. So I mean, usually they make the nest in a, or not usually, but from what I know or what I experienced, it was in a meadow. And this, you know, if they make a nest there, it's gonna take time before they, you know, lay all the eggs, you know, incubate them, hatch them. Although maybe, I don't know where they're gonna harvest this grain, but maybe if they hatch, I'm gonna check how long it takes to hatch the eggs, but might be a month, maybe maximum, probably 20 something days. So maybe if they start to incubate now, they might hatch it before they start to harvest the grain. And the chicks are different than the chicks of for instance, songbirds. You know, they're not helpless from the day they're born, like the ones of songbirds, and they can actually run around and follow the parents. So, and they're actually to an extent quite independent. So, you know, it could be, you know, they could you know, be okay. They could just hatch the chicks and then leave the field somewhere, you know, safer, hopefully. But that's definitely a different territory and a different male, that's for sure, which is very cool in a quite small area, I would say. Two different quail territories, which is awesome. Oh, I was talking about the blushers. Yeah, we had them. I cooked them. I fried them on a pan. It was just pepper and a salt, and it was so good. It was like, I kind of recalled, I had them just once like that, but they weren't this good because they weren't this fresh and this, like, you know, very fleshy and dense. And it just made me realize how delicious this mushroom is. It was just amazing, and definitely took a higher place than, and for instance, parasol mushrooms, which were definitely one of my favorites. But now that I tasted separately, very delicious and well prepared blusher, I have to say that they are much better than blushers. Much better than parasol mushrooms. They're very close to porcini, but very close to ceps. And they're very delicate and just amazing. The taste, the texture. And if you do them like this, just very simple, and fry them so they're slightly crispy. They're like, they're browned on sides. Like, it's just, oh, really absolutely amazing. And when you're frying the mushrooms, by the way, there is a little trick I've learned some years back. Don't put the oil until they quote unquote sweat. You know, let them be there just dry on the pan for a while until they release some of the moisture and water they have in them. And once that happens and they're softer and they're sort of like glossy and sort of, you'll see they're gonna be like, you see they start to cook. That's when you add the oil, because if you add it before, they're like absorbing all that oil, sucking it in immediately, and it's very ineffective. And you put a lot of oil in there, they absorb a lot of oil, and then it's incredibly greasy and oily and very heavy and very hard to digest. So if you're frying them, wait for 5 minutes, say, you know, until they start to release all that water they have in them, and then add the oil. That's just a little trick I've learned, and I'm doing it with pretty much every mushroom, I think. Yeah, every mushroom, save for some exceptions. But whatever you're making, ceps or blushers or parasol mushrooms or any other mushrooms like that, you know, wait and then add the oil. So yeah, that was a bit of a info on mushrooms. And I haven't been to the forest since, you know, all the sort of incidents with Drake, so I haven't really checked how well they're growing, but the blushers are definitely growing well. Now there's going to be some rains either today or tomorrow or over the weekend, I'm not sure now, so I think the mushroom season will be pretty bountiful. So that's great. And we're definitely gonna go as soon as some more time passes. I would say sometime in July. We're gonna start going into the forest, and I'm gonna show you some species and, you know, show you some, you know, ways to identify them, and, you know, well, I just show you my favorite mushrooms and what I pick and what I do not pick and what I am keeping away from and all that kind of thing. One thing I would say right off the bat is I never pick white mushrooms, you know, never. Save for St. George's mushrooms in the spring. Ooh, that was a nice one. Nice butterfly. Save for St. George's mushrooms, which grow in May. Or like late April. They're one of the first mushrooms, along with morels, one of the first mushrooms that grow in spring. And good boy. And they're delicious. They smell amazing, and the only reason why I picked those is because they are the first mushrooms to pop up in spring. And from what I've read and what I've experienced too, there is no other mushrooms at the time but that one. So you cannot really make a mistake. So when they start to pop up, there's only St. George's mushrooms. So if you find something, it's a St. George's mushroom, and it has to be very early on, because later on, where they still grow, later on in May, where they still grow, some more mushrooms start to pop up, and some of them are not edible, some of them might be poisonous. So that's kind of getting harder to distinguish. But very early on in the spring, when first mushrooms pop up, St. George's mushroom and morels, those are the first ones that come up. So you cannot really make a mistake there. And also, I mean, the St. George's mushroom has a very distinctive smell. It smells it has this, they say it's a flowery, like flower smell, not flower as of a plant, but a flower like a substance to make bread, or like a substance, like a product to make bread. So flowery like that. To me, it does actually smell like a flower, like a plant. But it's just very like sweet, specific flowery, whatever, whether the flower or flower, you know. But it's a specific smell that all these, it's actually the whole the whole family of these mushrooms. St. George's mushrooms fall to a family of, I believe it's bluet. Yeah, it's bluet. So these bluet mushrooms, there are some that you pick in autumn as well, and they're violet, you know, and they grow late in autumn, and they have also this very nice flowery smell. So that's, even though it's white, but it grows, it's the first mushroom in spring, and it smells flowery and tastes delicious. So, you know, I've never really, you know, I was very relaxed whenever I was picking St. George's mushroom, because it's so easy to identify. And again, nothing else grows early on in spring when they start to grow. So that's the only white mushroom that I pick. But apart from that, as soon as other mushrooms start to grow, I never ever touch white mushrooms, you know. It's like people are like, oh my, that's a champignon mushroom, and I'm like, maybe, I don't know, but there are so many poisonous mushrooms, you know, and very poisonous ones in the white spectrum, you know. And whenever I see anything that looks like, oh, like it's a champignon mushroom, I don't know, man. First of all, I'm not really a fan of champignon mushrooms. I mean, they're okay, but Rejku, tady jdeme. Tak, tam ne. He was smelling something in there, probably an animal hidden in there or something. I'd rather call him sooner than later. So, yeah, well, that's where we had the poison deer here. Like, that's when I had to jump through the brambles, and oh god, that was something. I'm not a fan of champignon mushrooms. They're okay. I mean, they're good. They're mushrooms, you know, and if you don't have any other and you put it in a recipe or in a pizza or something, they're okay. But I'm not like, oh, champignon mushrooms, you know. I think it's like one of the least interesting mushrooms that are there. Like, really, like the bottom line of all the mushrooms that you can have and that you can pick, they're the least interesting, you know. And from the ones that you can buy, probably as well, I think there are better mushrooms out there that you can actually buy. Sometimes you can buy what do you call them, the yellow ones, chanterelles. You can buy chanterelles, which are delicious. You can buy the one that grows on wood. It's the one that is sold quite commonly, and I don't know its name in English, unfortunately. That's also much better than portobello, are probably better than champignon mushrooms. And what else do you have? Well, porcini, obviously, if you can buy those, then those are amazing. But champignons are like, nah, you know. I don't know, personally, I feel that way. Yeah, but people are, oh, that's a champignon mushroom. And like, maybe it is, who knows, but most likely not. And I would never risk, like, picking anything that, like, looks, quite like champignon just to get poisoned, you know. And so many of these poisonous mushrooms do grow in the field. They grow in meadows and all that. Those are habitats where I almost never pick mushrooms, ever, unless they would be magic mushrooms. I mean, then I would pick them. And they grow in meadows. But well, the one of the types, that is, those grow in the grass. But I would never pick a white mushroom, ever. So that's just a little bit of a, I mean, hell, if you're like a professional mycologist and you know every little species out there, then hell, go and pick the white edible ones. But I don't know what they are, and I never had a motivation to learn it that deep through. And whenever there is some species that are very easy to misidentify with some other species, I'm just like, why would you risk it? There are so many amazing edible mushrooms out there. They are so easy to identify. Why would you ever risk getting poisoned just to try some specific type if it doesn't even taste that good? Which I'm sure I'm not aware of any white mushroom out there that would taste absolutely phenomenal. Then why bother, you know? Just pick the ones that are easy to identify and enjoy them and in good health and not dying, you know, from poisoning. So white mushrooms are a no-go for me, save for St. George's in early spring. And yeah, and morels, I haven't found morels in such a long time. I feel like there is not a very complementary or sort of well, there is not the type of habitat for them here. At least I feel that way, because I have found one in those 4 years, one by chance by the side of a road. And I've tried, I mean, I were looking for them. I visited several different places where I thought they could grow, but I haven't found morels in such a long time. I love those mushrooms, the way they look, the way they taste also is very interesting. It's one of those mushrooms that when you cook them a lot, they don't really change much in texture, so they're very like crunchy and crispy. And I just love the way they look. They're like very otherworldly, so that's one of my favorites too. But anyways, yeah, white mushrooms, that's a no-go. And things that grow in parks, meadows, that's always a red flag. I mean, the mushroom can look great and very edible and all that, but I like, so many poisonous species do grow paradoxically in like orchards and meadows and parks, so that's never a place where I would look for mushrooms. It's always like almost exclusively forest, and yeah, like pretty much just forest really, and edges of forest and all that, but never like in the meadow or in parks. And no, like for instance, puffballs are edible, and they do grow in meadows and in grass. But frankly, puffballs, I never liked those. I tried a couple of puffballs. I even found several times, I found the giant puffball, you know, the one that is larger than a football ball. And I didn't like it. It's like very, like the taste is so like mellow, and it's just the texture is very mushy, and I don't know, it's just I don't feel like, maybe I didn't prepare it in a good way. Maybe there's a way to prepare them and they're amazing, but the way I try to prepare them, they never taste really good, and the flesh just doesn't taste any specific. Like some of the mushrooms have such an incredible taste and aroma. It's like a sort of symphony of flavors, and I felt puffballs are just like a, I don't know, flavored polystyrene really. It just doesn't taste like anything. So I'm not really a fan of puffballs either, although many of the puffballs are edible. But I just like, I never felt like it's worth picking, you know, even when I found some, I'm just leaving them there. Yeah, I mean, like for instance, milk caps. Some of the milk caps have such an incredible aroma and amazing smell, and they're just like, so specific. Yeah, puffballs, not really a great fan of those. Although it's amazing to find a giant one. It's really something. It's like from a different world, really. It's such a huge thing. But not really tasty, I feel like. It's not really worth picking. Yeah. And so yeah, so like most of the mushrooms, or pretty much all of them, I always find and go search for in the forest, you know. Sometimes in close to the forest, I mean, they grow on edges and all that, but I would never go out into the fields to pick mushrooms, you know, or meadow or park or, you know, anything like that. So yeah. Well, and actually I forgot to mention, today was the first summer walk, because it's 20th of June, and that is a summer solstice. So welcome summer. And it's funny because today does not feel like summer as much as it felt like 2 days ago when it was like scorching hot. That was summer, full-blown summer actually. But now it's like very, not chilly, it's like 17 degrees. It's very like cool, and it does not feel particularly like summer, but it is summer solstice, so this video will go into the summer playlist as the first video of ever I've made in summer. And yeah, that was spring. That was spring, and yeah, we're not gonna see spring until next year. It kind of makes me sad. Damn, yeah. Well, but there are so many amazing, you know, moments waiting ahead. There's a whole summer, then there is beautiful autumn, you know, which is absolutely amazing. And yeah, then hopefully the winter won't be long, and then we're gonna have spring again. Time flies. Time flies. All right. Well, that's about that, and I will see you tomorrow. Actually, I will make the video tomorrow, unlike last week. So, yep, see you tomorrow.